All right, you're good to go.
Thank you, Jesse. Welcome, everybody. This is the October Health, Fish, and Land Use Committee meeting of Community Board 4. I'm going to read the MCB4 hybrid meeting preamble. Manhattan Community Board 4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will meet both in person and virtually. All community board member meetings will require an in-person quorum to come to order and conduct business. Board members are expected to attend persons in person unless they have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Committee members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. We encourage members of the public to join virtually. The Manhattan Community Board 4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and is currently live streaming on YouTube. I'd like to start by going around the room and just have everybody introduce themselves so the camera can catch you and people in the audience can see you. I am Paul Devlin, co-chair of the Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee.
I'm John Danielle Nolan, co-chair with Paul of the Hell's Kitchen Committee.
And Bob Manfado, public member of the committee.
Rachel Lee, committee member. Dolores Rubin.
Joe Restuccia. Brian Weber, public member. Sanford Miller.
Great. Thank you all very much. I don't see anybody else on Zoom. We're all in person except for Jessica. So quick agenda tonight. We're going to discuss the statement of budget needs. We have some updates on past activities, the demolition by neglect concerns we continue to have, and then we have a few new and old business items on planning fellow and port authority replacements. So let's begin with statement of needs.
Bob.
I was asked to read through the statement of needs as it applies to the committee. I thought it was fine. I couldn't think of anything to change. However, you may want to consider adding some new items or if people have an issue with the way it's listed now. I want to change the order. You can change the order, and I recommend keeping the what's called CS continuing support on there because there's people have probably read the papers. The city has been looking to cut back on the budget by 5%, and rumors that they may go to 15%. And I've heard they've been slow rolling out grant money to people in the present fiscal year. So you never know what's going to happen in the future. So I would maintain the continuous support.
So
That's all I have.
the first item is the slaughterhouse.
Expense or
And this is on capital. And the housing committee just came up and we just want to change it. The project is already committed and funded, and the HPD response is this project requires further study. So that's clearly an error. We brought up the housing, feel like be consistent, that it's obviously we want that change, that this is already funded. We want the continuous support.
Bring over the slaughterhouse is Rachel and Sanford.
So just to give context for our new folks, so shoot, gosh, I forgot the address. So in any case, yeah, basically it's around the corner. This is a spot that the city owned, and the hope had always been this would be 100% affordable. That was something that when Corey Johnson was speaker, really pushed for that as well. It's been an extremely long process, and then at the very end, it was held up on some more cosmetic issues by what was it? The Department
Design.
Design and Construction. Finally, we got this through. This is a real win for the community overall. It's something we're very proud of. It was one of the first locations identified by this community board as an opportunity for a 100% affordable space that provides a good amount of what we were hoping more middle and moderate income housing. But there's the plan itself as it came out. It was not exactly what we had hoped, but it does give us a lot of what we asked for. And so we make sure that it continued to be in our budget requests till it was finally done. So for many years,
Until it closes.
right, until it actually closes and they're able to get their, well, start the whole process of building. So now that we know that it's done, we're a little bit concerned that the response from the agency is like, oh yeah, we want to fund this for you. Well, you should already have this on record, it's funded. So by putting it still in our continued support, we can at least have them clarify that they do have the funds in place and that it is moving forward.
And this has gone through ULER. It has been fully approved,
Right.
gone through city council. It's totally at the end of its approval process. It is a affordable housing building that was subsidized by a hotel. And the issue why the project has been delayed is because, of course, interest rates have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And they thought getting the construction financing for the hotel, which in turn subsidizes the residential, is the problem. You should also note here there's 75 units of supportive housing inside of this project that we have within our request. And this project is actually a replacement for two sites, one from the Western Rail Yards points of agreement, the other one from the West Chelsea points of agreement, that were moved around and swapped for other uses, and this became the replacement. So we got more housing than either of those two other commitments combined.
The only thing I would add to that, it was a slaughterhouse.
Yes.
Way
That's
back
why.
when, that's why it's called a
Yes.
slaughterhouse, and this committee, specifically Joe Restuccia, identified that location years ago. So this was something the committee, the board, actually got through. There was nothing there, and we pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed.
Our first letter on this site was in 1986.
It's an empty lot.
I was not born.
I know, it's right, talking about that. All of it.
Wasn't even born.
I haven't graduated this about that.
I was in high school.
So how old?
Yeah. There's what it is.
I was at, oh.
Yeah. So I guess.
I wrote the letter.
Perhaps this is an overall strategy question, but I was just curious.
Slaughterhouse. Oh, Brian, right.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just curious why the third item on the list, the Harbor View Terrace, with the intent of the third on this, because I know affordable housing, it made sense to see affordable housing up on the list. But what was the rationale for putting that third, seeing that that
They're
was also?
continuing support, all right? There's no order in continuing
Yeah.
support.
Okay.
It's just continuing. support.
It's just saying
Oh,
thank you. It's
so all
acknowledging.
It's basically, there's been an acknowledgement
Right.
that the city's gonna fund these,
Okay.
and we keep it on until it actually starts.
But what I would say is,
So for all three of these that continue.
Yeah, they won't look at
if
it.
your
as-
schedule allows,
Okay.
do try to attend a budget task force meeting. And then the reason why I say that is it's really a great opportunity to
Yeah.
understanding our role as a community and how we are advocating to the various agencies, the things that are identified. The strength of our list is only as good as how much information that the community gives us.
Yeah.
And how involved and engaged we are as a community board. I am sure that the budget requests for other communities look very different from ours. But in terms of how they're ordered, that is something that during the budget task force, not the continuing support part, but the regular part, there is a lot of debate about what are the priorities and how do they align, first off, with the overall community needs. And that survey that we've asked the community to participate in, which I believe closes tomorrow, Jesse, the survey?
I have it down as Friday, but there was a glitch in it, so I might extend it out.
So this survey is this statement of district needs, which I'm happy to also forward everyone community, on the committee. And I sent it to a lot of block associations. That allows us to understand what is resonating most with the community. And during budget task force, we use some of that information from that survey to help us prioritize where we put them on the list. But do know where they are on the list reflects an overall sense that the board or the community is sensing. However, each agency receives only their list. So our seventh might be something that goes to the Parks Department, but it may be the first request that we have to Parks. So Parks leaves that at the number one. Is that
Or vice versa,
right?
it might be lower on parts.
Right.
Can I ask you that survey get recirculated? Because I don't recall seeing it this year.
Jesse, do you think you can send
Yeah,
a blast?
I'm gonna blast it out again tomorrow.
Thanks.
And the last thing for the new members, that this Harbor View, right, is a Hudson Yards points of agreement commitment for affordable housing. It has been through not one, but 2 RFPs. And we had a developer designated, and the prior mayor, after we were all done, ready to go, and it was part of a community, it was a community charrette, right? With the tenant association, where we developed the guidelines, the numbers of units, open space, like it was a total community thing. Everyone got their hands around it, and it was, turned out to be even more units than the commitment from Hudson Yards. Went up RFP, it was awarded, and then the prior mayor, my mayor decided, instead of building the like 16 or 18 story building that was, it was like 250 or 300 units, right? 314 units, we really got a lot of units in there. No, how about if we build a 65 story tower instead? It was like one of these bait and switch things that of course just stopped the process. And we hope to go back to this in 24.
The developer before that got arrested.
Boy, he was like, the computers were taken out of his office in the show day, so that's.
On the all right, so that's it for capital expenses. If anybody has any additional requests,
Do we vote on something?
I don't think we have to vote.
No, not the budget.
No, it's just-
Yeah, we can
do it.
Yeah, you do.
Vote
Yes.
letter.
Jesse.
No, but you vote, you guys vote out your recommendations. You gotta want to vote out your, all the other committees would do the same thing, so I would vote it out.
So let's continue on with the rest of the discussion, then we'll have a vote at the end.
Right, have you identified any capital expenses that are land use related at all in?
We just did,
We did capital, now we're doing expenses.
Yeah, but I just want
He's
to.
asking one.
No one needs new ones.
No,
Now we're just
nothing
gonna
to do.
vote benefits.
Cool.
So now on to expense. At the last meeting, we talked about the third item changing because the former college school number 4 has been landmarked. To make sure we can stay focused on St. Benedict the More, but then add in the new dramatist as an item on that list.
Yes,
The others all stayed the same.
New drama is building a church.
The dramatist.
It was a church.
deconsecrated.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, good, thank you for that. I think you had another question.
So one thing I was thinking about is, what kind of studies, research, preparation, et cetera, has DCP done about the housing plan that the community board put out a year or 2 ago? I didn't really desire to spend like 3 hours on the DCP website trying to dig out what research into that plan that they have or have not done. But I think if there are areas of it that have not been looked into, especially if there are things that are, you know, sort of our highest priorities within that plan, because there's a lot in there, so maybe we want to pick out a few things like maybe 11th Avenue, maybe something else, like just what are our priorities that we want them to look into and sort of get the ball rolling, because as I understand it, several years of study need to be done before we would even get to a year or anything like
Here's some good news. Leadership, housing, and land use met just last week. That's been easy to before.
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, you're sorry.
That's later in the agenda, you're gonna update.
Yes. So the council member pushed to have a meeting with DCP specifically to review components of the housing plan. And later, I guess I'll report on it. It's a lot of detail we got. And we got some sort of like, oh, that's a good idea. And oh, forget it. So I do want to report.
Additionally, this plan is new. This plan is something that the community board released, I'm saying 7 years ago, I think.
The
It was
original one, right?
original one, and it's living document. Every single, I think 8 and every single commission has had at least some exposure to it. In fact, a longstanding member of the commission was the chair of this specific committee. She still lives in the community. So there's that consciousness, and plus all of our electeds have been very much aware, as it's certainly a positive thing for electeds to recognize that they have a community behind them supporting affordable housing. So there's been,
Claiming it's their own.
they claim it's their own.
And increasing density, that's what we kept saying.
Yeah.
So like we have a committee that says we want to increase density in certain areas, that is not the norm.
Yeah, definitely not.
Considering yours.
So
But the question is,
what do they know? And so.
should we ask for more funding to push that zoning?
I don't, I
I
would,
bet you want to know.
Yeah, I think like. I don't know the technical details, but I know that before like doing any sort of significant neighborhood wide zoning change, DCP has to do significant years-long studies that I imagine are a meaningful budget expense for them. So if we put that in as like, we have an official request to look into 11th Avenue or something else, like, would that help expedite?
So maybe I should give a quick report about that now to ties into this discussion. So the council members had a meeting last week, myself, Jeffrey, Jessica. Oh, guys, huh?
Probably Maria.
Maria, yeah, we were there. And yeah, Kara's there part of them too. So we went through unbelievably the entire friggin' plan. Right? What I found fascinating is they were extremely familiar with the plan. They were very opinionated as to like for or against. And they also made it very clear when we talked about the development rights transfer between the park and land sites we identified, that developers have come to them and they've pointed the developers to our plan to say, these are the locations that you will have community supported. Like that to me alone was sort of like, we let out a plan and now people are actually, like, from the private sector trying to figure out what to do. And in fact, coming to this committee soon, probably in early 24, meetings we've had with the two owners on West 54th and 12th and West 55th and 11th to actually do the TDR, do a rezoning from manufacturing to residential, and to do 2 towers.
TDR transfer development, right?
Yes, the transfer development rights from us to the park. And the fact that that's happening, and they made it clear to us, we understand not many communities have a document.
Yes,
I'm like, well, it's good. A document. I will say on the flip side, there were certain items that they were dead set against, which was shocking to me. So one of the items that we're talking about tonight is illegal demolition, right? And we have proposed over many years now, a cure for illegal demolition. That is a penalty, you must have part of your building come back as affordable housing, just like the cure for harassment. And in the past, HPD encouraged us to write text and come up with a cure. We don't know why. We heard from city planning flat out that HPD and DCP are not interested in this at all.
Joe, expound on, not interested in.
They said they do not agree with us. And we kept probing about a cure for illegal demolition. We kept probing on it. We heard from the intergovernmental director at city planning, Danielle DeServo, who's still at the city council. We are not in alignment. We are not in alignment. So we decided, back and forth with the staff members, the council member, and then we sort of said, okay, let's talk about this separately. But there's some reason we don't know what the hell it is, right? But it was very much like, no. Now that's a curious thing to me. If an owner has done illegal acts that are contrary to the zoning resolution, you would think the folks who run the zoning resolution would want to come up with a solution for fixing these 12 or 15 buildings that we have. At the same time, they were also very open, for example, 11th Avenue in Hudson Yards, and asked us, they said that most owners did not, this is a interesting statement, most owners want to build commercial towers there. We're like, no, we know all the owners and we work with them through the Hudson Yards, Hell's Kitchen bid, and they want to build residential. So we offered as a board to set up a meeting with all the owners and to go to DCP to evidence their interest in building more residential there, because that's our weird location where we're capped at 6 FAR commercial, not even 12, which is allowed.
residential.
6 FAR residential, not even 12. So like, that was a good thing, like pull people together, have a discussion, let's go and talk about it.
But let me.
Does DCP need like the verified private sector interest before?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was just going to add on
They-
what Joe was saying. So everything's going to be market driven. It's not that they need it.
Mhm.
No one's going to look at a site. The site that the slaughterhouse was sitting as an empty lot. Why? Because it wasn't economically viable for anybody to come in there and want to build. So to answer your question, yes, they probably have to do a lot of work, but preempting it without actually having an idea or an interest or request may not be in the interest of the DCP to put that, to put the resources into it when market conditions can change and someone may have got residential and then switches back to commercial because of the way the market's go. So,
In cities other than New York, other than New York, the city, I'm sorry.
No, good.
Yeah.
I know what.
Yeah, cities actually do a plan like we have done for our district. Because what that does is a plan says, here is what the city of New York, the state of New York, the community believes should happen in these various areas. And then they take the plan and they adopt it officially. because that guides development. Our city historically, bluntly, is run by real estate and market forces.
We don't do.
And in fact, they're gonna wait for an owner to come and say, oh, I'd like to do this or that. Like, there are entire blocks in the northern part of the district that are zone M23, low density manufacturing. They're not ever gonna be that again.
But I think that that feeds into what Sanford's asking is, do we think it'd be worth asking for some sort of a study to take our plan and codify it at DCP?
They simply won't do it because that's not how they work. The only time we've done that and been successful is a 197A plan. 197A is a part of the zoning resolution that allows the community to adopt a plan. And in Chelsea, we did a whole Chelsea plan for East Chelsea that was adopted. And eventually, because of politics and other things being approved, it became an actual rezoning, right? So it usually is, we get a rezoning or a change when somebody else in the city or the private sector wants something to be done. That's how the gestalt works back and forth. Like Hudson Yards are gonna be rezoned.
So there were two developers who were interested, he recently spoke to or interested in rezoning at least particular parcels on 11th and 12th.
Consistent with our plan.
Yes. It's sort of, where's the gap of like, an individual developer is extremely unlikely to propose a neighborhood rezoning. Much more likely to propose rezoning a individual lot or like maybe a few blocks.
Right, so what happens is someone wants to do something, Sanford, and then the city says, do more. So they'll sort of say, you can't just do this, we want you to do this plus this, because that helps us on our vision.
So again, I'm gonna go back to the question about like, do we think it's worth, because a lot of times with our statement of needs, we don't actually expect funding to occur, but it codifies what we're hoping for in a direction, and since.
They won't spend it. That's the
But should
problem.
we put the line item in there to
What
say?
I would say is
Yeah.
are you asking if the committee feels it? Because I'm thinking that should be a good question post and budget task force. Because again, I think something that also Jesse, who attends budget task force and helps give a lot of guidance, can also provide guidance during that meeting of how we think that the agency would respond and whether or not it clouds the actual ask. But again, if we're asking if this committee should decide.
This committee should say, do we want to fund a study of the community workforce housing plan zone changes and have DCP look at our proposed changes and make them own it as opposed to just us owning it, as opposed to like,
They
do
won't,
you see the distinction I'm making?
right, they won't act. So we had a long meeting with them.
But that's
and Jesse, but no, it's not okay, because it creates more of a friction. What's happened is, they were very clear, they did not subscribe to our clear vision of along that 11th Avenue corridor, more residential use. Trust me, if we have property owners and developers, if you can pull them together to go to BCP, they will act. And it's not about money, it's never about money here, or resources. This isn't.
I think this is a somewhat unusual circumstance for like, not really unusual, but two things. One is DCP has in recent years become much more interested in upzoning large swaths of neighborhoods, particularly in areas with high prices in the city and good transit access, which the areas that we have highlighted in the housing plan, like meet those criteria. And then like that's a long running trend, but over the past 20 or 30 years, DCP has become more and more interested in like, what can we upzone, including against the wishes of the community. And then I think the second point that I think is a little bit unusual is that in this case, there's like active and somewhat at this point longstanding community support for some of these changes, including increases to density, where they are definitely not used to getting that support. So I think this might be a situation where DCP, like the reason they don't usually do things like give priority to zoning changes requested by community boards is because like those aren't necessarily advancing the other goals of increasing housing and increasing affordable housing, et cetera. But in this case, I think like we do have a strong like I don't think DCP has like had a situation where they have like a partner that they really want to work with before towards shared goals. And so I think like that, there might be more amenable in this situation,
here's
given
what I would
how they've historically done, if we push them a little bit.
The statement of district needs and our budget priorities, we do update them every year. The housing plan is a living, breathing document that does get updated as well. The people that sit in DCP, they do get updated as well, when there are political changes. What I'm concerned about is if we put that in the statement of district needs, and then we shift that ownership, so to speak, to an existing DCP, we lose that flexibility in understanding market conditions and understanding actually demographic changes. However, there are other ways to go ahead and communicate that we have this plan, that we do have these shared goals, and that we'd like to further partner with DCP in finding out how to realize these goals separate and apart from the budget.
Yeah, so the council member basically wanted certain items, like certain sections identified as the items he wants to push.
And can get.
Yeah,
I can get, because honestly,
I think if we make a budget request, to be clear, I think asking them to like do a study of the entire housing plan is infeasible, like it's a vast plan. But like budgeting is a prioritization exercise and giving them like, okay, well, we've talked a lot about it, it doesn't have to be about that, but like, let's say, like, this is the first thing, and then the second thing is, you know, item number 2, the demolition tier thing, and you know, we know all of them, but like having that exercise in prioritization, I think is useful rather than just having this document of like, here's, you know, extremely complex and well thought through housing plan, but you're never gonna have time to, or budget to study the feasibility of all of it. I think that, like, in terms of like getting, useful work done by DCD, it's gonna be better if they have like a concrete list of items, which may not have to go through the budget process, but that is one way we can work on like narrowing down, like this year, these are the things we want. And I would say about ownership, like, we're not giving up ownership of the housing plan. We're saying like, item A, 11th Ave, item B,
Yeah.
that, like tier for demolition. These are the things we want to look at right now. If market conditions change and some of the, and then we want to revise the overall housing plan, great, but like, these are the items that we think are relevant this year and that we want to prioritize.
So your
Can
specific suggestion.
Can I jump in for a second?
Justin.
I mean, I always see this, the document as being 2 different parts, right? You have the needs and then the requests. I think it's generally smart, and I defer to Bob actually on this is a little bit, because he's my predecessor and has had experience with the document longer than I have. Is the needs is aspirational, right? You can be a little more, you know, ahead of your skis, a little more suggestive. And not to say that we should put budget requests into the needs, but you can sort of be a little more aspirational with it. And then I think the requests, I think Joe is right that you do want to be kind of very specific and very direct. And I will tell you, if you ask for a study from DCP, you know, they will give you a line which doesn't give us much information to go with, because they'll respond in a way that says basically, oh, we'll need further study. and we just provided them with 155-page study. So I don't know what more they need. So I don't want you guys to, as the folks who are on the budget task force in the room right now know, it is rough when you get into that, you know, deliberating about which priority goes first and everything. I don't want you guys to lose a priority on something that we know unfortunately is not going to get the answer. But I do think you could put language into the needs that says, you know, we do think there needs to be, more responsiveness from the agencies to our affordable housing plan. I mean,
so, you know, I think I want to pick up on Sanford's specific thing. Taking the specific issue about the illegal demolition, which is one of our issues we have to solve, and putting it into the statement of district needs. And it's clear that this is that's a need, right? This has to be resolved in our district. Detailing what it is starts to get that sound out there, because I know in doing this stuff, you must go back 4 and 5 times to the well before you finally get attention paid on something with DCP. So I'm gonna ask Bob, I think that's where it belongs in the district needs. If you can-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. I think we should be specific. So let's put in Yeah, that's,
Discussions on 11th Avenue between 34th and 41st and the illegal demolition.
And it's great because it's one that they say, oh, someone might be interested, we'll talk to them. Oh, no. Those
So
two
we
things.
do have, in the extent, we do have a language in here about funding for inspection story.
But that's
Yeah.
right, it's, I'm talking about the zoning.
Yeah, right, no,
I just have one concern, probably not paranoia, but I don't trust DCP whatsoever to look out for this.
That's a consensus in the room.
Yeah, we all agree.
So whatever we say, we should make it as specific as we can. What we want.
Because we started our
It's not
conversation,
opening it up where they're gonna take it and own it, and all of a sudden we're gonna get something
in
back
that briefing,
that we didn't want.
we actually said, how many community boards have a plan that says increase density at multiple locations in the district? And they said, no, we understand. It was like, no, we understand, but I want to say, so work with us to do it, you know?
But we have very specific ways of increasing.
That's right.
density, So they may not. And
I don't
then you
think
take that and say, okay, great, that's.
can I ask just a, what a clarifying question here? So like, I know DCP needs to do a bunch of work before attempting a major, rezoning. What is the actual work? Like, I know people say environmental review. Is it primarily environmental review, or are there lots of other pieces?
No, so I've done results. Surprisingly, it's not that expensive. That's
Really?
bizarre, right? I mean, like, I thought rezoning was like in a million, so yeah, if it's a huge thing, let's say you're rezoning for like one of those buildings on 12th Avenue or 11th Avenue, right? The cost of that is probably $500,000.
In consulting fees?
Yeah, it's legal, you have to hire planners and attorneys who are doing all the due diligence as to what the zoning is today, what the proposal is, what it's gonna look like. What is a zone that's gonna be accepted? Frequently, most developers hire a community relations consultant, who goes out and shops this thing around, and a government relations consultant, that's part of the cost. And then you're sitting down and saying, okay, if we go from X to Y, from M23 FAR3 to C64 FAR 10 and goes to 12, we have to now do an environmental study. And so that means you say, based upon how many square feet can be built, whether it's used as residential or commercial, what are the impacts from that square footage?
And do you
And
think,
it's all quantified in like a manual.
do the costs scale up linearly with ground square footage that is being rezoned? Like if you, one parcel is 300,000, does that mean 10 parcels is 3 million? Or do you get some?
No, it all depends upon what. I mean,
In rocks.
yeah.
It's a good word.
So I'm gonna say that, I wanna say like, take the 11th Avenue stuff, right, that's the 11th, 12th Avenue. So that was, I think, it's like 2 buildings and maybe 500,000 or 600,000 square feet, right? So they're doing a test saying, if these are predominantly residential, divide the number of square foot, how many units get produced? Oh, how many units now? 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. Now that makes the next thing, how many school seats are affected, like, there's like a whole study, you get true environmental consultants that do this inside and outside, it's formula driven. And then they're laying this out, and depending upon the impact, you know that there's no impact. Or there's minimal, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is,
Thank you.
this is good information, but let's get
Yeah.
back on the budget. Just on the budget task force questions.
Hey, Chris.
The last line item here is on the Department of Buildings and expand code enforcement on the. And the response was, this is not a budget request, given the shift that's occurred.
From says it's been funded. Mine.
So mine says this is not a budget request,
Expand
and Chris does not seem to have the responsibility to we cannot make a determination this time.
for number 39.
43.
Where do you have 43?
I'm all sorry, I printed out.
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
But they have a 43.
We have it, but it's in 39. Also,
39 says has already been funded.
right, that's the odd part here, there's 2 expand codes.
It's slightly different.
Right, no, I understand, but
They're different. One says it's not a budget request, and it's about enforcement on the Airbnb regulations. And
how can they not be a budget?
that, well, there's my question.
Oh, no, I think this belongs in special enforcement.
So we're on the agency? Jesse, you hearing this? Joe thinks that 43 belongs to.
OSC, right?
Office of Special Enforcement.
That's fine. I just wanted to jump on that there's, in capital, you can move things to continuing support. In expense, there is no continuing support. So when we get to like numbers like 43, that's basically our version of continuing support, just to be clear. So we can change whatever you want to change about it. I just want to understand like that's really low. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's that low because there's just no continuing support. We would have normally, I think, would have put that into a continuing support, but expense doesn't have it. But we can certainly change the agency to Office of Special Enforcement.
Yeah, because the weird part is it says it's not a budget request, Jesse. The agency response is not a budget request.
I know. I'm reading it.
Right, so that, but given the recent changes of what's going on with Airbnb enforcement, so should it be Department of Building, should we move it?
Why do we ask Jesse to find out? I believe that it has been an Office of Special Enforcement. It's still OSC. Right, and I want to make sure for us that whatever agency is living and going forward, we say that's the agency that.
But it lists, so we're listening at Department of Building.
Joe, it's OSC.
No, but Chris,
Even
on
in the future, Chris,
on the sheet,
Yeah.
it says Department of Building, so that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Right, and
So if it needs to change, Jesse,
So I recommend that we recommend to OSC, but have Jesse confirm it, so it's double clear. And that also for number 39, we delete that because this has been funded. Which is great. When we make a request and
So the
say.
suggestion I have is that we take to budget task force for them to do this.
Okay.
At the meeting.
well, all of it. That's-
I know, right.
That's fine.
But I don't mean, just we don't have to throw it at Jesse.
So we're gonna delete item 39 and we're gonna, on item 43, change from Department of Buildings. to OSC.
and 43 to OSC.
And then 31 is another problem. They say we need more information.
Which is the usual response.
One of those.
So I think the question here is, and Jessica can find out from Ophelia, is it code enforcement that does those inspections? I don't know that.
Did you hear that, Jesse?
Or are we talking about item 31 now?
Yeah,
Everyone.
I
Find
don't
out.
know if it's code enforcement that does that. There might be a separate part of DOT that does that. ADA.
So, but I forget why this came up to us, is it because of the restaurant entrances and things like that on the sidewalk?
It is that, I'm trying to figure out, like, within DOB, it's big agent, it's like
Yeah.
multiple slices, we gotta figure out who does that,
Right, right.
and then maybe that'll clarify.
I mean, can I ask a question? That's been on there forever. I think that's been on there before, maybe before my time or just when I started. So, I mean,
think it was before my time.
if right, so I mean, I think it is a value if we don't necessarily, if it's always very low on that list, like a 31, like I said, is, you know, is it a value to us to do this, especially if we're going to get answers like that? That's the only thing I throw out there.
Leave it to the budget task force.
So leave it on to the budget task.
We're making.
All right.
But please ask Jesse to find out what part of DOB actually enforces that part of the law.
I can try to figure that out. Are we going up the list?
No, the printout was funky, so we're done.
So wait, I'm sorry. So the top, just so I understand, and I'll circle back with Bob tomorrow because I know he's taking copious notes. I can see him writing. Is that the top expenses are staying the same?
Yes.
Okay,
Everyone
thank you.
gets-
Got it.
So I move that we adopt the expense items and capital items as slightly amended and recommend their referral to the budget task.
And second, Bob seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I oppose, abstentions, PNAs, motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Oh, item 2 is about illegal demolition or demolition by stealth. This has come up many times in the past. We're still here. I know Paul wanted to talk about it, maybe develop some sort of language, with some sort of task force, anybody to take it up. There's 3 buildings here, or 4 buildings.
The locations.
The location.
There should be a fifth on there for the ad, 77 Avenue. It's under severe neglect. So 78 Avenue, 48th Street, southeast corner.
Not protected by the demolition restrictions.
It's not.
It's in the perimeter. But the other address is 410, 412.
410, 412, 416.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
So I just thought we should talk about this. Also, if anybody wants to take up, this is the 50th year of the Clinton Special District.
Yeah, it's done this every year.
Right. So for new members and also for members of Chelsea who may not know about this, I think does somebody want to give a little report on that, the next committee meeting, or maybe to the full board? It's the 50th anniversary. It's been hugely successful, I think. I think all probably those 2 people who live here. In terms of economically and good for the city, it is being whittled away. Should we remind everybody of how important it is?
Right, you're considering Jewish stuff, I think. So that, I think that's a very important thing, and we should talk about the history of the special Clinton district.
Yeah.
But I really do want to hone in a little bit more on the demolition by neglect, given the DCP meeting, where they fractured out the demolition by, they seem to agree with everything else in the housing plan, but didn't seem to agree
Right,
with some.
so I think
and that's what
we definitely need to follow all this demolition by neglect. This is illegal demolition. I mean, every one of these locations, there's been an active action by an owner to not comply with the demolition restrictions. Like, it's not like it's neglect just letting it be, like, owners have taken a series of actions to then say, oh, this building is so bad, it's gotta be demolished, you know?
And they've applied for demolition.
And they've applied for demolition permits and they've been approved and then revoked. So, but I thought it might put
But that pattern has continued on, and I think we need to sort of address how to get ahead
well,
of
it
that.
slowed down to where it was. Remember, we were having
Yeah.
a letter a month for a while. It was pretty, you know.
But I don't want to let it die in the vine because we've had some success with it.
Well, then maybe we should
read it.
Maybe we should do the following. We have, the universe of buildings is bigger than these 3.
Yes.
Okay, and it encompasses multiple districts. It's not just Clinton Special, it's been in West Chelsea, you've got a settlement one there, there's one that, another one in West Chelsea, 500 West 28th Street, that was owned by related companies who said, we didn't know it was protected, the related companies only. And then they agreed to rebuild the building, for example. So, and that's not been done. So the point is, maybe we go through all at a meeting, the whole universe. And send it out to the all committee members. And then talk about what's our strategy for this,
Yeah.
because it's not just one location, it's 2 in the Garment Center, Clinton, Hudson Yard, like it's all over the
It's like, Chris has these addresses, but, we've thrown addresses around, like, we should have a list, we should know which they are. We should know where they'll stand, we should know.
I think it is, sometimes it's maybe planner to pull together from the letters. Like
a map.
we have a map. We have a map, I'm saying, just to do a refresher, like, so everyone knows, here's this one, here's what this one had, here's, So we have like a visual that helps everyone understand it, and then we say, okay. What's our action?
What do we do with this?
Right.
And
our council members should be involved in this discussion.
Well, you bring up the 2 Garment Center address is 319 West 35th Street.
17319.
Joe, can you ask your planner to put together that list?
Yeah, so
And then we
remember,
spell.
So Savannah, who's a prior planner, she had done that before, so the body of that is like, this is a compilation more than a starting new.
Right.
But I disagree with JD. I think that it's important as a context for,
I think the context is important also. What exactly is the regulation? I think it's important we get that in so everybody understands it. Building on 48th Street, I walked by it tonight, the facade is gone.
Yeah.
It looks like the roof is gone,
And that clearly, when you remove the roof, you remove floor area.
but they are allowing it to go through DOT. So what exactly is the regulation? Is it 20%? No, demolished
If you remove
20%?
20% of the floor area, that is considered demolition in the special zoning district, in any of the zoning districts.
And I'm sorry, Paul, and the context of the special district.
And even if you're removing it and replacing it, it's still considered demolition. Because there's an understanding that we're trying to.
But it seems like we're always behind and we're reacting. We're walking by and saying the facade is down. We know there are buildings in our district that are being neglected and are on this path.
It is not about, I gotta tell you, it's not about neglect. This is active owner participation.
But all right, but we know that there are buildings that have active participation in neglecting their buildings such that they will face demolition. Why aren't we as a committee might want to be a step ahead of them instead of a step behind? That's what I'm suggesting.
When this first started happening, one of the things that came out of this committee that we did do was to think about how to, and it also came out of the housing as well, how to inform tenants of their rights, because that's all related. People that, where they're starting to be harassed out, where they're noticing things are happening to the building, et cetera. And I.
Or if there's a number supposed to, you must vacate, you have to, demolition where it was a building that was totally protected.
Right.
On 39th Street.
Right, that was when it first began, and part of that, giving that information then became actual, I believe that the council passed a law, what, 3 years after that, that provides tenant rights, or at least identification.
You didn't get any funding to sort of say like, go and, like. In buildings
But there are also buildings that are vacant, that don't have tenants, so that's also
that's
part
what
of
you're
the
saying.
formula, right? Like, we know that there's a building in the corner of 47, of the northeast corner of 47 is where that Starbucks used to be.
Yeah,
And there's a chemical
Yeah.
hellhole,
yeah,
and that's empty, so the tenants issues don't help us address that building. So I agree
So-
with your
so it
strategy on that.
sounds like,
That's-
what, very much so like the transportation committee does, is they literally identify, they go block by block and they identify what may be at risk.
What maybe.
However, there's a lot that are literally, we don't know, like the one we discovered on 55th Street, that been behind the curtain for a
It was
long
people behind
and
scaffolding and stuff and all of a sudden this.
But we know the one on 47 where the one we've been trying to get them and then they declared bankruptcy, that building should be on our, we should make a target list of buildings. and
Good
say,
idea.
we should monitor these and we should stay ahead of them and keep DOB ahead of.
So let's put two things together. One is troubled buildings that are vacant, right?
Yeah.
That's a list and a map. That's a separate thing. But then I think we want to work with our council member, maybe. I'm gonna say bluntly, maybe to work to get some specific funding for HCC. That people, especially in the parts of the district that are the residential scattered, not gonna know each other as much as like on 48th Street, 47th Street.
Because it was heavily hit by Airbnbs, you have transient populations
Exactly,
living there.
right. That we asked HCC to have some particular funding to do tenant outreach, like literally flyers in the door kind of stuff. So you know your building is protected. That helps on the occupied buildings. And we started doing that and we sort of like pulled back for a while. We had,
How would you label those buildings, Joe? Outreach to tenants in which buildings? How would you label?
I would say, the districts there are, that would be in the garment center area, in that area between 8th and 9th, from 35th to 40th.
I'm just thinking of words you've done on my notes, but which buildings we
Well,
targeting?
what I'm using the special zoning districts. There's a limited number of residential buildings in the garment center. Area, a limited number in Hudson Yards, right? We have old addresses and a limited number in West Chelsea. And the interesting part is they're scattered.
But we have a lot in Clinton.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
What's the target group in Clinton?
I think the target group is the entire active district.
It's a whole entire mailer.
Yeah,
It's literally the zip.
They have-
It's
they have-
10036.
And 10019. Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're.
but I just think it's the kind of thing where it's like you work with an organization that does 10 organizing like HCC just to get this word out, right? And then maybe we do a specific page on our website too. That people can actually search to say, is my building protected?
This
Put in your
would be great expenditure from the cruise line fume fee that we can have applied to our neighborhood.
The
benefit.
It's the kind of stuff that actually.
$700,000 on this tenant outreach.
So Paul, that would be the Paul, that you hire a not-for-profit organization to do like that piece of it, right? Because you don't want the city to do this, that's like,
Right, so I think the next. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so what Joe is asking, I just want clarification, just so that way we have, it's a clarified point I need to as well. You're asking for us to compel the council member to request the council member to identify a certain amount of money that would go into funding of HCC. Right,
Specifically
specifically for,
to educate, or first of all, there are two categories, like Paul said, there's we have a watch list of vacant buildings, I think community board can figure that out, I mean, that's a small list, right? But for occupied buildings in all the districts.
Yeah.
To do outreach, so people understand what their rights are and their protections are under the special zoning district.
number two. We'll then have to, if HCC were to agree, we'll have to find a dollar amount. And then we have to push this in our current budget task force now.
No, the council member has discretionary funds.
They'll do discretionary that way. And you can ask the state or.
And the state reps can,
Okay, I just want to make sure that it isn't like a line item.
no, and we have asked HCC, this community board has requested HCC to do certain tasks like this before, and they've done them. Like they will say, here's what it will cost, it's kind of like remember, it's an organizer over, like this supervision, not just like one person, you have to supervise the person. You have health insurance, stuff like that.
I just wanted to make sure that we clarify where the money's coming from, and who we're going to be, who we're gonna ask, and who we're gonna ask for the money.
So far we have demolition intentionally by neglect. I'm gonna use the word intentional. We have vacant, which are occupied, we have vacant buildings, and then we have the generic, within protection of special district.
Total neglect by vacancy.
We have three categories of how.
I would say don't load things, just make them flat, right? It's more consumable. You have trouble buildings on a watch, vacant trouble buildings on a watch list.
That's good. Vacant,
I already called them,
Yeah, and so it's the community will all watch this. Also, it's like the affordable housing plan. Once you start making a map and you put it out there, people go, oh shit,
Right, and again, recognizing that there are tenants scattered around, I want to make sure that those.
And those people who are isolated, there's like 4 buildings on 36th Street, there's like ones of like.
So the.
Yeah, I was gonna propose that the community board put out a notice about the Clinton Special District with very precise,
And the other districts,
and the other districts about precise DOB requirements to alert everybody, alert all the block associations to watch out for this.
maybe it should be like a fact, right?
Like what?
FAQ,
Yeah.
like,
I think
simple
Then the,
question and answer.
then the other issue that goes back to your point about the special fund district, it is being encroached upon. There are other issues that are happening that aren't demolition issues, they are other pipe issues, there are.
Yeah.
The encroachment of the MTA site, that MTA rezoning into the special fund district. That Campbell's nose is coming up with a tenant, so what issues would you think?
Anybody who tells you a commercial zone in the middle of a residential area could have no impact on like.
yeah,
But how do we think about the 50th anniversary and how do we make sure that it's not encroached upon?
Why don't we say we're gonna celebrate the 50th anniversary in 2024? Because it was enacted first in 73 and then in 74 again. So we can get by on that a little.
Sure, I just want to make some propaganda that this is a beneficial thing for the city.
well, it is a propaganda, it is beneficial, and one like it's beneficial because the Clinton Hills Kitchen area is a community, right? It
Yeah.
has 9th Avenue as its main street, it's all low rise, it has the opportunity for people to feel like they're in a town, but most importantly, it's allowed generations to continue to stay in their tenement buildings. Because of the fact that it isn't upzoned to the very, very large scale buildings, it hasn't risen the prices of everything else.
But it was also initially the great compromise that went all the time today.
That's right.
There's a preservation area in the center, and then there's a perimeter area that allows high-rise residential development. Back in 73, the community said we have to balance development and preservation. Like that lesson sort of been lost in the city.
I thought Rachel was saying.
Why would the new people take on the oldest thing in the district that you're probably
The oldest thing.
No, because that way they get some history.
You learn about it.
You
The
know,
second thing I would request is, can we get some money from DOB here and explain?
I don't think we can.
No?
Jesse, can we get somebody to do?
Can we get like the DOB commissioner here to explain how they can serve us better? Just what he said.
I think we have put in.
Let me see. Oh, sorry, he's indicted. though. That's apologize.
Or then, if not, then Joe, since you know a lot about this.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. I was laughing. I mean, listen, I do, in all seriousness, if you want to try to get DOB here, we could get DOB here. but I do think we need to be, come up with a specific set of things we're asking them about. And I just want to think about again how productive that is. So, we can certainly have a DOB, we could certainly have a meeting during the daytime about this. I do think maybe doing, as Joe suggested, getting all of our ducks in order, our lists, a map, whatever we want to call it, and going to them and saying, here's the issue. I mean, I was at that meeting on the housing plan, and I raised this then, and I'll say it again, there might be this difference of policy / housing theory that they have with about the demo issue, but I didn't want them to think that this is just a theory or a policy disagreement. This is real people's lives. I mean, the amount of hours that I'm spending on the phone with 410, 412 residents, Joe's dealing with them as well. Each of you guys see a different building, see a different issue. You're trying to figure out
West 47th Street.
Right. And so, and then we have the situation where it goes bankrupt and it's sitting there, and we did everything we could to try to save it. And DOB actually made a pretty good effort too, I think, to try to save it. They were on a lot of calls. So I do see them being, they couldn't be, they're not DOB per se is not oppositional to us. But I do think DCP and HPD have to recognize that this is a real world problem with real people's lives being affected. So
Yeah, 343 West 47 is next to a park.
Joe, we did have DOB come to us before, when we were talking about flagging certain things, remember that, so they did respond.
I just want to note that I sat in City Hall in 2005, where they agreed on the mayor's side, with Bloomberg's office, that they would put a tag
Yes.
on all,
I was at the meeting.
on all buildings,
Right.
residential buildings in our district, so DOB could never make a mistake to issue a demo permit. The mayor's office agreed that in 2005. How many years later are we?
Well, then we need to revise that.
I was just thinking about it.
No, it's crazy. It's sort of like, and by the way, that's pretty simple. If you have a little tag on it in your system, and you say demolition permit, it's gonna go feed, you can't do that. Like a landmark is a tag. You can't just,
I mean, we had two budget requests in our budget, and then I think they still are there. One is about updating the website, and the other one is with the flagging mechanism.
Yes.
The other one is the special inspectors dedicated to the inspectors dedicated to the special districts. And so
I think on the big issue also, one of the big issues was DOB will say to a developer, you can tear down this part of the building. They do that, then they go get another request to tear down the back of the building. So pretty soon they've torn down the entire building,
right,
but they've done it legally.
no, they actually can't, because we plugged that all back in 90 something, whatever, because they were able to get a series of building notices. So a developer on 43rd removed the back wall, and they removed the front wall, and they got a permission to remove the third floor. Like they got like 6 things that were, and at the end of the day, it's like it's gone. They're and so that's where that 20% rule came in, to avoid that.
Just to look ahead in terms of action items on this item. So, okay, so the 50th anniversary of the AQC, I think it's a meaningful thing. Happy to research, help put together propaganda material, whatever form it might take. But if it's 2024, that gives us more time. I agree. That sounds great. On
Done next week.
Not possible, okay, for the FAQ / tenant outreach, so are we simply asking for funding, or are we helping put together?
I think we put something together
Helping
and
do
put something together, and then we have to funding for the average.
Okay, so we don't.
We have now on our main page, webpage, the Chelsea Night stuff, everything's together. Maybe put all of our special zoning district stuff together, so it's one page, anybody can go to. You find the map for West Boston, you find the map for, in other words, all the protected buildings. And it's a map with a rollover that you roll over, it's your address or something. There's the FAQ there, right? And then we combine that with like an outreach by stuff, like if you think you're like, like, we sort of like lay out,
No.
people don't know about it. We lost literally hundreds of households because they didn't know.
And do you have something that we can use as base to
Oh, yeah.
develop that side? Okay.
When we did the extension of the demolition restrictions, that was done through the community board, and they're all the buildings are mapped, they're all addresses, they're all photo evidence.
I,
Not the full part of District North, but all the garment center.
for my education purposes, too, I'd be interested in helping with that. to get started.
After.
That would be great, and then we can post that on the community board site.
Yeah.
So everybody.
Well, you know, on that second, because I think that's, you know,
So is the request to make
And if they keep
HCC propaganda or to make a
They're
demolition?
two different. Oh, no.
Those are two different
Yeah.
things.
HCC would do outreach after we come up with a plan.
What Jady's talking about is the special district anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to work on the specifically notifying people
Right.
of demolition.
Yeah.
We can make
By the way,
that short in the.
HCC and the district are in the same anniversary years, that's why it's two different things.
Yes. Yeah, but I just clarify.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, we can work on together.
And you can work with our community planner.
Just to, for the folks, for the newer folks on the committee, and also some of maybe the older folks who could want to relook at it, we do have an entire page dedicated right now to Clinton Special, which does have some links. It doesn't have all the recent letters. We can start to work on that. I think I'll need Matt Sullivan's help on that one, Joe, but like,
All right.
but there is something there. So under the Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee, there's a sub page on Clinton Special. So I would suggest if anybody interested, taking a look at that.
We've done this.
Yeah, you know, Jesse, it might be something that
Revitalize
that
it.
we give it an identity of itself. Like about protections, so, because it's not just Clinton House Kitchen land use, it affects West Chelsea, it affects multiple parts of the district. And
Let's focus on our Clinton district and then we can push it out.
can I just note you that the least mapped is Clinton Special. All the others are fully mapped and identified.
Let's get them.
So JD
I think it's,
and,
I'm sorry, it's important too, that other people on the board know what our concerns are.
Yeah.
Because they may not know. And so they may not vote, or
They may not know that we protected literally
And
thousands
that's
of
our
houses,
mandate.
thousands of people.
That's a mandate. It's a state, city mandate. It's not us. So the more we know, I think. The
so
stronger.
Jay and Paul, I know that the next item on the agenda for new business is about the planning fellow.
Before we leave that.
Okay.
if you Don't
It's
mind,
related.
what Paul brought up about West 47th Street, Chris knows well. They're not bankrupt, Paul, is that correct?
They're in bankruptcy.
So what do we do? Because inevitably, this is done.
Somebody will buy that building out of bankruptcy. And as part of that purchase, we'll do a bunch of due diligence as to the encumbrances on that building. And realize that they cannot demolish that building.
Okay,
And they will get a discount on the price from the current owners. And then they'll be coming to us and saying, can you help us?
for Stanford and Rachel, Joe, Paul and I and Joe were on meetings. So what happened is that it's a 4-story building to demolish 2 floors.
Part
Somebody,
of the floors,
pardon,
part of it.
part of 2 floors, somebody saw, said, what's going on? Stop work. They said, oh, well, we didn't know it was 20%.
And then they continued to work over and over, they got stuck with 3 more times.
And there was a fire.
And they tried to burn the building.
Well. So right now, it's gone bankrupt, so we're thinking, here we go. We're gonna lose another building. What can we do here?
So just update, I actually spoke to the super of the co-op next door,
Or people.
to 343. And I also spoke to the co-op president, I believe his name is Evan, and he's been to a number of 47th Street, 48th Street Block Association meetings. He desperately wants an update. Over the course of the last 2 out of 3 weekends, we received tropical rain that has inundated 341.
Yeah.
And
Because the 343 is not properly sealed, as a partial roof, the adjacent co-op gets flooded constantly.
now they're concerned about the foundation of 343 and 341 being vocalized by the super and by the co-op president, and they just want to call to find out what's going on. And what timeline are we talking about in terms of remediation?
This is a bankruptcy. We have zero control over it. And
But can you talk to the co-op president and fill in?
we have talked to them, met them many times.
Okay, he
So-
seems, it seems that he's in the dark right
I don't
now.
know, Jesse can set up a discussion, but the bottom line is, they've been in meetings with us about what to do. But the truth is that it is at a moment now where it's like a normal thing. A deal goes under, and then it's got to get a workout. So someone will buy it, like listen, people, I've been trying to buy 410, 412, West 46th Street. The buildings on 44th Street, 347, 351 was 47, 44th Street. There's a lot of people sniffing around and stuff, and that's what happens.
All right.
So for that next.
So the next
agenda
item.
So what I wanted to ask is we have a planning fellow that will be working on the residential conversion in the district, and just wondering whether or not protections from losing our housing stock may be either an additional or in higher priority for a fellow just asking a question, because I don't know how he came up with specifically.
The application has gone, from what I understand from Joe and Jesse, the application has gone in for this fellow with his description.
With description, okay, good.
So to add that, but did you agree to take this on, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, so,
Kind of.
first of all, it was Matt Sullivan who wrote a banger of a letter, for the.
And then we all looked at it.
Yeah, we all looked at it and put it, but the letter arose out of, the request for the fellow arose out of the city's proposal to rezone large chunks of Midtown manufacturing commercial for residential. And
Called MS Midtown South Mixed Use, MSMX.
It goes back a little further than that, because don't forget, last year, Chelsea Land just had a fellow do a vote study on
Right.
commercial conversion.
That's right.
Which kind of. And so I brought this back up to this committee.
As a more targeted.
As a more targeted version, given that the city's discussions are bigger and broader now, and I want to make sure that. This commercial conversion part of the government staff, and with the MXMS and the
Right.
Glen district all get
For
incorporated.
the other committee members that are tied together, is that community board member, Lucia got a briefing about this rezoning, right? Good thing. Our district only has,
You're talking about the Midtown South.
yes, the Midtown South mixed use
Yeah.
zoning, right? Right, in our district, it's only the west side of 8th Avenue, and then a little bit to the south in Chelsea. But although the buildings between 8th and 9th, loft buildings, wedding cake, are the exact same building typology, they have not included those buildings, those blocks in the study. And the reason is because they're just looking at manufacturing zones, not zones that are ready commercial. Yet this commercial zone prohibits conversion of buildings more than 100,000 square feet.
70,000.
70,000 square feet, which is the exact issue we raised back in the garment center rezoning in 2018. And it's like, let me see it. It looks like a duck, looks like a duck and it quacks, but it's not an M zone designation. And we said, you've got to extend it, so we want to do a study, get a fellow to do a study.
Yeah.
So as part of the MX zoning, they've got, and our council member is very interested. And so is the garment center. Did like, it makes no sense to do all these same buildings, leave out these 5 blocks.
And it integrates in with the housing.
Right.
Like we want, this is a large picture discussion on home, on our.
And we have never done the conversion part in the housing plan, or we intend to put it in for 2024, so it ties into all MS. And S and X rezoning.
So Paul, it's what the special district did, now government district, for the three areas.
No, this is just those 5 blocks.
No, it should be.
The fellow study is just, between 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
35th and 40th. Because that's the piece of the pie that was left out by the MX.
But the intent of this was to do something for the overall housing plan.
Right, but okay, again, we went down the road with a fellow, Velasco, and it became an amorphous academic study that was not useful.
Okay, explain that, that's Chelsea?
Yes, yes, no, that's
But he did, so Chelsea Land Use had a fellow, that's a community board, it was a community board fellow.
Yes.
Came through the Chelsea Land Use Committee. The study that they did was too broad and too big, and it wasn't focused enough. And it didn't correlate to our housing. So the intent was to try to get somebody who could tie in the discussions we're having about garment district, MSMX, and all that, and our housing plan and integrate that.
Here's how it ties together. We focus on a very tight, specific area. Recommend regulations, changes, whatever, and they can be applied to other parts of the district that have commercial space. In our Clinton special district, there's not a lot of commercial space to convert. Just isn't.
Right, but they're gonna think of the stuff along all of that too, though. The, not within the special district, but outside of, on the edges, like on 11th
So
Avenue.
do
11th
the
Avenue.
description's already gone out? Have we already chosen a fellow?
No, they have to choose us.
Oh, well, sorry, have we already gotten one? So the
Yes.
point is that we just sent out a description, and the description, Brian, is only for that
Yes.
area 8,
Yeah.
9,
Yeah,
35th, 34th, excuse me, to
it's
35th
to.
to
39th.
40th.
It's listed as 40th, yeah.
Okay.
And Paul, we addressed 11th Avenue in the housing plan already. And asked for it to be rezoned from manufacturing to mixed use already, like we've done that part of it.
The west side.
On the west side of the.
So it sounds like what we would be doing is patching in this piece that's missing to the information we already have.
Because our position is back in 2018 for the garment center rezoning, we asked to increase the threshold to do residential conversion. And DCP said no. Now bizarrely, they're coming back this thing, say yes, but except for the very area, they said no, which is the same.
So perhaps when a fellow responds, if a fellow responds, we give them the full piece of the full picture and mention if there's capacity to tie these things together.
Yeah, I think it has to be more to say this is the area where we'll make the focus that impacts these other areas. I just
Right,
wanna
we
make sure-
make, we made, point is, we can get some learning done specifically on regulations, square footages, what it means, like, the idea is that instead of taking this broad brush, you say, there's a limited number of buildings in these 5 blocks. What's the square footage? What kind of floors can be, remember, there are certain floors of garment center buildings that are too deep, can't, that are more office floor, so above a certain height, they can be converted. How does that work? What do you do? And then here are the units that can be produced, both market rate and affordable. City of New York, come join us, as you're doing it just on 8th Avenue.
So who works with the fellow to make sure that?
We volunteered Brian.
Brian's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, it's like-
The last month he was offered as volunteer.
Brian's a member. Brian's also a member of the board of the Garment Center Alliance, so there's a lot of access to.
I actually live there.
And you live there?
Only schmuck that lives between 8th and 9th Avenue and West 30s.
Christine's
But the point of it is, he has access therefore to the building owners, get information to help them really get this fleshed out in a different way than we normally would.
Yeah, we're,
And Garment Center Alliance is in favor of this.
oh, absolutely. I've already spoken with them about it, and they've actually done extensive work with consulting firm regarding, because they were the ones who were pushing the admission proposal to the city.
Back in 2018.
And they're sort of scratching their head as why.
We have to take a position as a board on what the government district wants, and we enforce our.
To reinforce our 2018 position, said, let's do this, and like,
We've been in cahoots.
I think it's part of this stuff is, as we're talking tonight about the new members, this is the incremental thing, you keep on chipping at the rock. And eventually,
Some of the language that we're using.
chipping at the rock.
No, the cahoots, the propaganda.
Yeah, it was a theme.
Yeah.
It's like, it's sort of a different way of finding your language.
We advocate to strengthen the concerns of the.
We advocate against the other folks who are in cahoots or scheming, who are pouring money in directions to get what they want in order to get some middle ground for.
Anything else on the? Oh,
No, thanks for clarifying. I
No,
just
yeah.
wanted to understand that.
and again,
since
this is it's been an ongoing year after year after year thing.
it's a thanks to Clinton Housing and what Matt Sullivan for his finessing of the language or creating the language.
He's a planner, it's like amazing to get like.
He's a beast.
Brian, I recommend you, like, take a look at the report that came out from last year's Chelsea Land Use Fellow Program and just.
I hear it's crap.
What were we just having a conversation about what language we're using?
Well, it's very broad.
Cafe.
It's a little bit broad. The fellow is there, look at it. There is some politics. Right, absolutely, internally. And you know, if you wanna, join meetings with fellow and anyone here, everyone is welcome.
No, it's really helpful to have folks to do that.
Yeah.
By the way, these are
When
students.
are these meetings?
To be determined.
Yeah.
If we get the fellow.
Telling us to.
We've been told, and keep in mind what the fellow. We apply for, fellow, they choose us.
You may or may not get it.
We may or may not get it. If we get it, it's a structured short school semester.
Yeah.
So it's a short window of time. And this is a student who has other obligations.
And it's
That's helpful because I was like, where are these fellows?
And no, Rachel, they come from regular county schools, NYU, Columbia, but
So
also
and then they do a report and they kind of, we guide them to the report and then the presentation schedule, like they have a deadline.
They present to us.
Yeah, come present to us and then they'll present to the full board and that's part of the whole program.
And I would tell you that it is a range of competencies. So we had some fellows
So we're awesome.
that were unbelievable that did work for us, Aisha. Remember her?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, someone came from Malaysia with a different culture here and did an incredible job and was so effective. But now we hire her to her service as the community planner for like 10 years.
I think working as a fellow, I thought she worked for Clinton Housing the whole time.
No, I work.
Yeah, I mean, and
She was just like incredible. Her presentations were so solid, you know.
which, you know, they worked extensively on the work we did in Port Authority.
Health issues out, right?
Health.
Nice. Goodness.
Segue.
We're moving along. Speaking of Port Authority, as you all know, they're replacing the terminal on 42nd.
No.
Just heard.
People may not know.
In the next 6 months, it should be. There's 4 people from the community board made up of the language committee, this language committee, and the transportation committee, and the Hell's Kitchen South Coalition, which was a community group.
I have a question about that. Just, okay, yeah.
They've been meeting
It's
for
not-
every 2 weeks with Port Authority to try to talk about things. And I think it's very important that every meeting.
Oh, loud.
Well, that's our new community fellow.
There we go.
Our new planning fellow?
How's the quality of this work?
I think Mama's doing that.
Sorry, JD. go ahead.
So every meeting that we try to update what's been going on, just so the community, a lot of stuff is, can be talked about yet, because they don't want to happen. Joe goes to those meetings. Joe.
So it is Bert Lazarin, former chair of the board, right? It is Christine Bertay, chair of transportation, myself, chair of housing, JD from land use. And Eddie McIntosh, former chair of Chelsea. So we really try to get people who are like, have the most land use depth, because the stuff that is being thrown at us is remarkable. So let's just dial back a second. So for the new members again, the original proposal was to demolish 2 blocks on 9th Avenue and to move the terminal west. And there was a huge pushback against that. Elected officials stood up in front of the Port Authority and said, no way. And that ended up in a series of bi-state meetings that we went to for almost a year with all of the mayors of the Jersey side. Remember, the Lincoln Tunnel comes through, the buses. This is a convocation of mayors, elected officials, like everyone is uncles in these meetings at the Port Authority offices in Jersey City. And we got to a point where they realized the plan as proposed was not going to happen. Back to the drawing board, they brought in a lot of their higher echelon people and came up with a new plan. And the new plan had a couple key issues that are important. The community wanted not just a commuter bus terminal, but we wanted a bus terminal for the long distance buses that are parked all over the streets. And have all these weird, 11th Avenue, Bolt, Servia Street, all that kind of, all the Bolt bus kind of stuff. And the first give the Port Authority gave that, they said they would build also a terminal for long distance, which is an amazing thing. And then they came back over multiple iterations and said their idea was specifically, they would rebuild the entire ramp structure coming from the Lincoln Tunnel. So the buses would no longer touch the city streets. They would come in and out through the storage facility on a bunch of new ramps over 9th Avenue into the rebuilt terminal and then exit the same way. And that's a huge, think about that. Amazing, right?
Yeah.
They also agreed to enclose the terminal because of emissions and to close the ramps. Now that's changed because between the time we started and now, there will only be electric buses by the time this thing gets built. So the emissions questions now move. Right? Now that's gone back and forth a lot. And as part of it, they made another big give because we had a series of, the neighbor coalition was put together. People, like 3 foreign people show up at meetings, pretty intense, you know. The Port Authority to the first meeting came and said they're offering a lot of amenities and they mentioned the new Jamba juice in the terminal. I swear by God, I thought they were gonna be lynched. Yes, right.
It was actually, we were very calm. They wanted to have security there.
Yeah, they were really, yes. So that developed over time, and they were also at that point still saying they want to demolish like the block front where Metro Baptist Church is, and like, you know, on my office, like full block fronts, and they did.
I photographed every building in the area
That's right.
multiple times.
Yeah. So they made a change, and then we did a series of charrettes with them to determine what the neighborhood wanted, and the top want was open space. When they came back with the revised plan, they are building 2 parks above on bus parking lots, and they're decking over some of the diagonal cuts between 9th and 10th. The parks will be roughly the size of Bryant Park. So this is real, you know. But as we've now progressed, as every plan develops, you know, changes, whatever, the original conception was to demolish the building, the current building, from the top down and build new from the top down. And they showed us stuff being built in Shanghai, how they built in the World Trade Center to see who did the World Trade Center. So as it went along, then they also showed us towers. And there'd be a large tower on 9th Avenue and a large tower on 8th Avenue. And these are not just towers. The Orion building, familiar with that? The condo on 42nd and 9th. That building looks small next to these towers. This was a whole different level of, you know, like these were FARs like 30 or something kind of stuff. And they were also doing.
Pause for a second, just to know, Port Authority, the building itself, where the bus terminal is not the only property that Port Authority owns. They own tons of the Hell's Kitchen area. And that's part of the conversation about, one, you know, what do they do with those properties and how that actually can help them fund some of what they need to do with the bus terminal. And that's also some of the points where the community can be in that conversation. What is the use of those buildings? How high will those buildings be? How much affordable housing can we get out of that? And where can we put in additional green space along all those additional properties that our Port Authority owns? So it's key to note that we're not talking about just this one structure, which is the buses, but the entire idea or the plan is going to encompass Port Authority owned property throughout our entire district.
And the scope of their plan is
It's our original motivation for this.
that the bus terminal has.
It's
I
absolutely.
mean, we're talking like they had wiring problems.
Yeah, it's.
They had structural
I've
problems.
been in the Port Authority bus terminal. I believe you.
That's the renovation part, of course, you gotta see behind the scenes.
Yeah,
We
it's-
saw pictures that were like, okay, yeah, that was installed in 1950, like not a good idea. So in the current plan, we now have it is the terminal itself, where it sits today. It has 2 buildings on 8th Avenue with heavy density, which makes sense, above 14 subway lines, right? That's the place show density. The 9th Avenue towers moved to 8th Avenue, so that means we're not gonna have a gargantuan thing on 9th.
The one behind, the one that was sort of behind the Orion.
Yeah, it's now all on 8th. Two towers on 8th. Another big change is, and they were very happy to come up with this, and we embraced it. They intend to demap part of 41st Street between 8th and 9th and create a new atrium, 10-story entrance
Nice,
to the bus terminal that will go right down to the subway.
no, beautiful.
There will actually be like sunlight inside that building. So it'll look similar like how Moynihan looks from the inside.
Wow.
Yeah, right, it's an amazing thing, right? The bus terminal will continue over 9th Avenue, and I say terminal because it is not a ramp. They are putting gates over 9th Avenue, a very large structure, and we see this, we'll have to really get into it, what that means. And it will continue all over to Dyer Avenue. So imagine a building that starts on 8th, crosses 9th, and goes to Dyer.
16 stories.
16 stories. As it makes this turn on Dyer Avenue, goes over Dyer, it becomes bus ramps. And the storage facility, which is solely a storage facility now, for layover buses, commuters, there's all these buses where they go, there's lots of them. That is on between just west of Metro Baptist Church over to 10th Avenue. And that is about 15 stories. And then we continue on a series of ramps over 10th Avenue into a new, entirely new, the Port Authority land between 10th and 11th, 39 to 40, it's called Galvin Plaza. We enter to the tunnel. It's like the ramp comes down, there's the dog run, is that what the art is?
Astro dog and yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a farm.
Look,
Don't drive by and say,
That was it, yeah.
that whole area becomes a new set of ramps. And a helix, series of helix ramps that bring you up to this terminal. So it's incredibly complex engineering thing. And then south of the storage facility are two parks between 37th and 39th streets.
What's the projected timeline on all of this?
When we are,
When we're not gonna be.
yeah, no,
Oh,
You'll be alive.
you're 186.
okay. So this back is part of the draft environmental testing.
Part of it.
Part of it, just part of it. We've got it, just been uploading it to the.
So, Joe, can I ask a question?
Yeah. Right, let me just give you the time frame. So we're talking about construction is starts February 2027. Right, well, no, but
That's.
this is a major,
That's really,
That's
good.
really-
Really surprised.
it is one of the largest infrastructure projects in the nation.
Sounds like.
What's the price, Jesse? Is it 6 billion or 8 billion?
Well, it's gone down, because it started at 10.
It might be, it might be 10.
10, no, it's at 10.
10. So, and it's a combination of raising, it's the Port Authority's bonds, they want to build buildings and get payments and taxes, and they are applying to the Federal Transportation Administration as one of the major signature projects of this presidential administration.
Hands on that, like, Wally was 25 then.
Right.
Yeah, well, so the last time I saw a plan, it was. knocked down.
Inflation hits.
The last time I saw a plan, it was knock down the existing structure, build a new structure, knock down the old structure, run the operations from the western structure, rebuild this, then move over and then put the buses back the long distance, or the go and bolt into this.
The long distance buses all now go, commuter buses, to the
So
new mega.
everything is, so, and then there was a terminal, there was a tower behind the one, and there was a tower at 11 that.
Those towers,
It's all now.
but those towers are going because the helix structure is so complex. And this, I mean, what we forgot too is that that block also spans the Amtrak up.
No, that's right.
Beneath ground, so like they're building a series of ramps above an underground train tunnel. And then going into a passenger tunnel, Lincoln tunnel. It's like, this is an engineering like marvel kind of thing at the end of the day.
But I'm thinking more about the streetscape, right? So you're saying now this new 15-story building that's gonna run essentially from 9 to 10.
No,
Yeah, from 8 to.
it goes,
I mean,
from
from 8 to
eighth to Dyer, is one building. Between 39th, between 40th and 41st. And then a second building between 40th and 39th, west of Metro Baptist, over to 10th.
So like your block, Metro Baptist and your building, those are gonna stay.
Yeah.
And the terminal's gonna go to the south of that?
The terminal's to the north.
North.
The good thing is that it will build a wall between us and Chelsea.
No, and there was, I think, one more thing that's really important here is that as part of this, major public realm improvements.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about.
So we're talking-
Patty's Market.
Yeah, we're talking about that, the ground floor of all these buildings, we retail or community facility. They're really focused on transparency, making the portions that are on 9th Avenue West connect to the community. It's like, and they're engaging back and forth on this thing. Now, the real problem is we have these constant meetings and everything we see says not FOIA, confidential for discussion purposes only. So today we actually asked them in the meeting, when can we begin to have this actually for the full public?
But at this point, the only towers are on 8th Avenue. Everything else is gonna be 15 stories or above.
But to say it's massive is like an understatement.
No, I'm envisioning.
So on 8th Avenue, though, we're talking 42nd and 8th,
And then the 40th and
40th and 8th.
Right, because that, the new central entrance to the terminal will be what is currently the 41st Street.
Where they're-
That's that bridge.
Yeah.
I wanted the taxes come down 41st, cut through the building between 41st and 42nd.
That
You have no idea, we talked about taxis for 1 hour today.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go up, I'm gonna just sum this up to say that,
Yeah.
but public realm improvement, so we asked specifically, this has to now get the community discussion.
Yeah, and can we go, is the Port Authority Task Force gonna go back to more community input groups like strike groups, because this is a dramatic change.
Right, so here's the time,
Yeah.
this DIS means that they're starting the process for public review for real, right? They said they would start their first public meetings in January 24. And we asked them today, can you present to the land use committee in December of 23 before, and they actually said an interesting answer. You have to ask the Federal Transportation Administration if that is, like, will that be against the rule, you know, like, there's so many.
What was their plan?
This is a federal environmental review, it's NEPA, it's not like our normal. Yeah, it's not secret, right? So this is like a major, we're in the middle of a major thing here, so.
And I think what we asked for initially was to continue the main street of 9th Avenue.
Correct.
Not to block that and to have a special district, all mentioned. But I don't know.
I mean, an example is the Department of City Planning decided they'd like to have an entrance on 40th and 9th on the east side with a triangular plaza. We certainly want a plaza on 9th Avenue, right? We said, no, we want to continue the street wall.
Yeah.
And then there should be commercial there that ties the northern and southern parts of the neighborhood together.
You need to address their sin of tearing down South Hills Kitchen.
Exactly, and guess what? They said yes. And DCP wants it, they don't want to do it, they're aligned with us. But it's item after item like this. We're now getting into, we're seeing massing, that's all. What will it look like? What, like, for example, the 8th Avenue side, they showed us like an airline terminal. Well, that's okay, that's a bus terminal. But as you get over to 9th, we don't want glass walls and stuff, we want something that ties into the surroundings.
As a generic overview, Joe, would you say that of the requests of the community, we're getting the 20% level, 50% level, and 90% level? Like, where would you?
We're currently at
say
80%.
80%, well, that's great.
Which I'm shocked at, because it was, remember, the start was demolish occupied housing and buildings in the entire neighborhood.
And that was revealed by just posting that they had. Yeah, what they had was essentially they had done their own little RFP, request for proposal from architects or designers, et cetera. And when those came out, they posted them, and all of the designs did not show any more residential on 9th and 10th Avenue. They just weren't there. There just was something else. And so part of what the instructions were you have the space across 9th and 10th. And that began the community outcry, not the community for the community itself.
Oh, yeah, well,
And we gathered at Bedford Baptist Church to have everyone who came in, as 300 plus people, everyone be able to speak, to say what their concerns were.
and if you've seen international. You see international architectural composition, competitions, it's like the highest, the best, and the smoothest, like it's things, they look like alien ships just dropping down. They turned their backs to the neighborhood, they had nothing to do with anything around it.
Someone wanted a design for their masthead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was like Star Tech sort of.
And now we're also doing the last piece, we're getting involved in identifying housing sites. That's a big thing.
Offsite?
That offsite or adjacent, because as they reconfigure things, certain things will go.
Because wasn't the tower on 11, wasn't that mostly housing?
Yeah, the 10th Avenue towers.
I don't know, so that was down.
Yeah, for an example is, you know, on the corner of 40, this northeast corner, 41st and 9th. It's a very ugly, like brown, glass.
Yeah.
That's an event building for a Port Authority bus stop. They're gonna redo everything. That's gonna be available. Like, it's things like that. We're starting to work through that.
The whole block is gonna be very interesting, now that they're redoing, gosh, what did we just go through the landmarking,
Like, Martin?
no, the building,
Oh,
our old
McGraw.
building. The Rock Hill building, because that now they'll have some activation on 41st Street.
I think it's gonna be massive, and I think it's
Oh, it's
gonna
gonna be massive.
be a shock. You'll see it in January.
We were not seeing a street level view of anything for months and months and months. We insisted, show us a street level view. After that meeting, I mean, like, the eyes would pop, I was like, whoa. And so that's why we're now trying to figure out how to get this, there's just so many pieces of it. I mean, this is.
Some we're working with Penn Station, working with, one of the things we do is take people out and walk along the sidewalks. And I know, I heard you guys.
We did that,
too.
we
So,
mapped out a
Yeah.
very intricate walk with all the elected officials.
Do you see, where do you know?
We took people on rooftops.
So they walk in the searing heat with a freezing
Yeah.
cold, with a group of 45 people, elected officials.
But it wasn't raining.
It was so hot
All right.
that I remember at one point during the tour, which is important,
Back in our
Christine just totally forgot where we were going. We came back.
It was so hot on the 145 tour, like officials, we ended up in our houses building on 35th.
Yeah.
At Boston Park, that people were like
Drenched.
drenched
Everyone
and like just drinking water and
Yeah.
like sitting there like this, you know.
How hot was it?
So it was horrible. You know what it was?
So-
We beat them into submission. They were so dehydrated and exhausted. They acquiesced and gave us the
There you
look.
go, that's what we done.
Motion.
I have a motion to adjourn,
Is there a second?
Second.
Any
and
objections?
Jesse's like, thank goodness.
I know, I'm gonna take a bath, got showers, wash my eyes in bed, and we're so going. Thank you, Jesse.
Yes.
Thanks, Jesse.
So over the top.
Good primer, good background. Thank you.
Have you followed up on the